Yep, this one is on book. Hard to disagree with that. It definitely one of the worst games of Booker's career. I'm starting to suspect that Kendall Jenner is a serious problem here. I definitely think that this was for sure one of the two or three worst games that we've seen out of D Book in the last 2 or 3 years. It was really tough to watch. Okay. On that note, I guess we can go ahead and get into my just kind of analysis and takeaways from this game. First and foremost, it was how did Mikal go 3 for 7 from the line? That's a fucking fantastic question that I would love to know. We started off the season incredibly well from the free throw line. In fact, we were, I think, the number one in free throw percentage by a fat margin, and that has dropped off the face of the earth the last 3 games. I wouldn't be shocked if we're still top 10 just because it's only been a 3 game sample size. But we've really been struggling from the line, and Mikal going 3 of 7 from free throws is it's not acceptable for your one of your primary 3-point shooters on the team. Thoughts on CP3's play so far? I think that he's providing exactly what I was expecting him to provide. However, I do think that some Suns fans had some unrealistic expectations. I think that he's been a clear and obvious improvement over Ricky Rubio, especially within our half-court offense. Even in the first half tonight where he was not getting his shot going, where he wasn't aggressively getting shot attempts up, he very clearly affects and benefits our ball movement just as well as our efficiency within the half-court offense. However, there are definitely moments where it's like, fuck, I just wish CP3 would be more selfish. There was one point, I think 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, where he was cutting ahead, got a pass over the shoulder. He had a clear line at the base, or a clear line at the basket. Caught it, turned, and kicked it out. He's like, oh, fucking attack there, CP3. So he definitely has almost erred on the side of passive through the first 12 games of this season, which is not necessarily what you want to see from the third-team All-NBA or second-team All-NBA guard from last year. However, I do think that he has clearly impacted our offense. He's clearly been a huge benefit to both Mikal and Cam Johnson. I think that our offense is significantly better, and he does a damn good job whenever you throw him on the opposing best guard. And so I think CP3 has been fantastic for us, and although I like Rubio, I am appreciative of what Rubio did last season. I do think that CP3 has clearly been better than Ricky Rubio. So, not underwhelming, but like a little bit below my expectation. Like I said, I just think that some Suns fans maybe had too high of expectations for CP3 coming into the season. As I mentioned early on in my streams, I don't expect him to be more than a 14, 15 a night, like a 15 and 9 kind of guy, 14 and 10 kind of guy for us. But he obviously impacts the game far more than just his statistics do, just in terms of the efficiency of the offense, the ball movement, the off-ball movement, getting great looks, not open looks, but great looks for Mikal, Cam, and Jay. So, I am a CP3 fan, and like I said in my takeaways, some of y'all on our Suns need to put respect on that man's name. Goddamn, I'm pissed. I'm going to cry now. It was a frustrating game, especially in the second quarter. It's tough to lose this game after coming off of a loss to the Wizards, as well as losing to the Pistons 2 games before that. As I mentioned early on in the stream, this is definitely just another game to temper Suns fans' expectations. I still think that we're a very good team, but to be playing so poorly during one of the easiest stretches of our entire schedule is obviously a little nerve-wracking. I would fucking love to talk to you about Ayton. I absolutely loved what I saw out of Ayton tonight, even though he just finished with 18 points or so. I think that the impact he had on the offense was huge. I think that to the please dunk Ayton crowd, tonight was the perfect game. I absolutely love to see his aggressiveness going up. I think that as he's getting those dunks, we almost saw him attacking and rolling the rim harder and almost putting his head down more. And I absolutely love to see that, and he's going to need to do that to reach his full potential offensively. And tonight was just a step in the right direction, even though he didn't have that shot falling. Like imagine what Ayton could have looked like tonight if that mid range was falling like we have seen it fall before. Also on Ayton, I really think that we're beginning to see kind of a progression in the chemistry between CP3 and Ayton, as well as Booker and Ayton. Obviously, Booker and Ayton need to continue to improve their chemistry. Every game, there's one or two looks at the very least that should have been layups for Ayton, and that was true tonight as well. However, we are seeing the progression with CP3. He had some very, very good passes to Ayton, especially in the second half, as well as that just beautiful lob to Ayton in the first half. So I love to see their chemistry continue to develop. I mean, we have to remember that these guys have been playing together for a month and a half total. Like they had 2 weeks of training camp, they had 4 preseason games, and we're 12 games into the season. We're beginning to see that connection develop between CP3 and Ayton, and I think that this is only the beginning. And I think down the stretch, later in the season, we will see even more, an even better connection between those two. I mean, we saw that on the Thunder last year, where the Thunder got off to an extremely slow start. But once CP3 found his rhythm within that offense, as well as that connection with Steven Adams out of the pick and roll, that really allowed the Thunder to take their game to the next step. And I think tonight was a step in the right direction, as opposed to the Wizards game. Ayton had so much gravity too. You saw the defense collapse on him, and CP3 would get wide open looks. I mean, exactly. I think that even despite the fact that Ayton only had 18 points, I think his impact on offense was significantly more than that. I mean, we saw him get hard doubled no less than 5 times tonight, and I've been a big supporter of Ayton in this regard. But he moves the ball extremely well out of doubles. I think that is an extremely, extremely underrated aspect of his game. I think that's something that we do not see young post players be good at more times than not. Obviously, Embiid was good at it early on. Of course, Jokic was good at it early on. But, I mean, he's a third-year, 22, 23-year-old center who is facing up against the double team and passing it well. I mean, he probably had 3 or 4 hockey assists tonight, as well as another 3 or 4 on top of that that should have been hockey assists if we had made it. I love to see his defensive intensity maintain at a high while his offensive aggressiveness is turning up. I was almost kind of worried that with Ayton turning up the aggressiveness, we'd kind of see him return to that rookie year where the offense is coming and he's being aggressive when he gets the touches, but defensively he's not putting in the effort, and that was not the case tonight. He really, really did a solid job contesting, rotating early, as well as switching out on the perimeter. I think that he was clearly, in my opinion, our best defender, and one of really the only 2 positive defenders of the game next to McHale. Like I said, I love to see his aggressiveness. I love to see in the first half him going through contact, initiating contact on both of the 2 times that he went to the free throw line in the first half. However, that kind of did cool down in the second half. I think that has more to do with the Grizzlies rotating early on him as well as doubling him at times, which does make it harder to draw that contact when going up for shots, because obviously if they're a step late, then that allows you to go into them and draw that contact. But I did like to see those 2 plays out of Ayton in the first half. It's hard just not to hammer the dunks. I mean, that baseline spin reverse dunk was sexy. Like it really, really was beautiful. I love the lob. I love that traffic just going straight up over the guy for the and one. There were a lot of very, very positive things about Ayton's game tonight, and maybe none more impactful than his rebounding. I continue to be nervous about the Suns rebounding, solely because we are so reliant on Ayton for that rebounding. But I mean, he continues to come through. Our offensive and defensive rebounding disparities have not been significant this year, and that is through no help of anybody else but DeAndre Ayton. And he was huge on the glass again tonight. He really is just such a high-level rebounder, and I absolutely 1,000% stand by my statement that he is easily a top 5 rebounder in the entire NBA, and borderline top 3. In the same vein, I think that Mikal and Cam both played solidly tonight. Didn't necessarily get enough out of them that we needed. However, with Mikal, with Cam, and with Jay, the rebounding is just it's a problem. We are allowing way too many offensive rebounds from forwards of the opposing team, and tonight was just another example of that. I mean, for fuck's sake, there's one play off of a missed Grayson Allen 3, I believe, in the third quarter, and it was a long rebound, and Jay just pretty much fucking watched it, and they ended up getting a bucket inside following that offensive rebound. So I do think that is a problem. However, it is hard to consider our rebounding as a team and as a whole a problem, just as long as we have DeAndre Ayton on the floor. But I do need to see Jay put a body on somebody. I do need to see Cam put a body on somebody. And I need Mikal to put a body on somebody more frequently. He actually does occasionally, but we didn't see it enough tonight. I think that I love to see Mikal being aggressive in the first half, attacking. He got to the line several times, but as a commenter mentioned, going 4 from 7 or 3 from 7 from the free throw line is unacceptable and obviously the difference in the game. And I just don't know what is happening with our free throws right now. But we really need to return to that high level free throw, at least percentage wise, shooting team that we were early in the season. Cam Johnson in his first start tonight was fine. He played solid. He was really quiet in the first half, but he did have 2 or 3 drives to the basket that I really liked. I really am a strong. I really want to see Cam attack the basket more. I think that's really going to be where he develops that next step in his game, the next evolution of his game. And we saw it a few times early, especially in the first quarter, but that really died off in the second quarter. However, he hit some big shots for us in the fourth quarter, so it's hard to complain about Cam tonight. Played some solid defense at times. I think he was a really good matchup against Kyle Anderson, who hit some shots before we hit Cam on him. However, he's a horrible matchup for Brandon Clark, which we didn't see too much of, thankfully, because it's very easy to make the case that Brandon Clark was their best player today. Ja also had a fantastic game as well. Jay, on the other hand, played quite poorly tonight. This has been another of a bad stretch of games for Jay outside of the one game where he went for 20. I think that the things that he brings that makes him a must-play are the defense and the backside rebounding. And in both of those areas tonight, he was lacking. In fact, it's easy to argue that he was the worst out of the 3 of Mikal and Cam in those 2 specific categories, which is not what you want to see. I mean, that is supposed to be his bread and butter. Obviously, with him missing 3-point shots, that hurts. But he's a streaky 3-point shooter. He's always been a streaky 3-point shooter. I mean, he shot 25% for Memphis last year, and then when he got traded to the Heat, that went up to like 40-something%. So he's an extremely streaky shooter, so we need him for the rebounding and for the defense, especially against the forwards, and we just did not see that tonight. He also, along with Cam, was just a bad matchup for Brandon Clark. Obviously, we need to touch on D-Book. This was his worst game of the year. I'd have to go back and look through all of his other games just to 100% confirm that, because he's had 1 or 2 other bad games this year. But this seems like a clear contender for his worst game of the year. and honestly was one of the worst games, one of easily the 5 worst games I've seen out of D-Book out of the last 3 or 4 years. He made his very first shot and then missed his next 8. He took, I think, 12 shots in the first half. That's just not... it's rough, and I know that it's almost like he has something against Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks is always getting him heated up, and that's been great in the past. I mean, he's hit a buzzer beater, a game winner against the Grizzlies, as well as that 50-point performance, or maybe it was like 48-point performance against the Grizzlies 2 years ago. But tonight he got under his skin, and when D-Book went into attack mode, he was ice cold, and that really fucking hurt our offense, both in the first half and at the very end of the game in the fourth quarter. I understand that D-Book's a fucking killer. He's a top 5 to 8 scorer in the entire NBA. But tonight, his aggressiveness really killed us, which hurts even worse because we've been dying for him to be more aggressive. But tonight, he chose to be aggressive during a cold stretch, which again just really fucking killed our offense. It was tough to watch at points, especially with that missed dunk. God damn, dude, I don't know what's going on with him, and I don't even think he played horribly all game long. I mean, in the third quarter, he did a really good job at being passive, at getting Ayton involved, at getting the shooters involved, but he kind of got to that point where it's like, okay, I need to score now, and he just could not hit his shots tonight. And this loss, if it is on one player, it is definitely on D-Book, which just hurts because, I mean, he's been bad this season. He hasn't been bad this season by any means. He's still a very good player and easily, or very arguably, the most important to this team. However, he has been bad compared to D-Book standards. Again, this is just 11 games into the season, so I'm not worried. He will turn it around. I do not have a single doubt in my mind, but it really comes down to how quickly he can turn it around, because as I mentioned earlier in the stream, this is one of the easiest stretches of our schedule all year long. We need him for these games, and for him not to show up tonight was tough. I really wish we could substitute the game he had against the Wizards for tonight. We easily would have won this game if we had gotten that version of D-Book. But I think that his defense is fine. He continues to try, but especially in instances in which the shot isn't falling, the first thing that comes to mind is him breaking up that lob pass. However, he's not a good enough defender to make up for if he's taking a high volume of shots and not hitting them. He's a good enough defender and a good enough playmaker where if he's not hitting his shots, he can still contribute in other ways. But if he's taking a lot of shots and he's missing it, it hurts. It hurts to watch. It hurts our team, and it led to the loss today. But I don't want to put this solely on D-Book. I think that we saw several weaknesses today, even with... one of the things that immediately jumps to mind is our defense. There was a high degree of penetration, especially in the second quarter, which was leading to some very wide open kick-out shots for the Grizzlies. I've mentioned many times that penetration is one of our problems, and even though they weren't necessarily punishing us around the rim outside of putbacks, the drive and the kick definitely hurt us today. I mean, the Grizzlies shot 42% from 3. They took 26 threes, and I would venture to guess that at least 15 of those would be considered open or wide open within the next-gen stats. It just was a poor defensive effort. I think I was even a little underwhelmed by Javon today. Campaign was essentially non-existent on the perimeter defense. Mikhail and Jay both gave up a few drives. Mikhail played really good defense in the first quarter and part of the second quarter, as well as just getting into the passing lanes some extra times. But he was by no means an elite defender tonight, especially on the driving kick. I think that it was just one of those things where it's hard to point to one specific person. I don't think that one person was killing our defense today, But in terms of our team defense, it left a lot to be desired. And it was weird because coming into this game, I was expecting our transition defense to be the area in which we were killed. I mean, the Grizzlies with John Morant are a fantastic transition team. I mean, Brandon Clark and Jaw are very, very good at fully utilizing the transition offense. And we actually did a really solid job in transition defense tonight, not letting them get out into the open floor. Obviously, that kind of fell apart a little bit in the second half, but I still would absolutely give us a good grade for transition defense. But it was the half-court offense that really killed us. And the Grizzlies are by no means a good offensive half-court team. So that's not good. Like, it's one thing to give up a lot of the open shots against the Wizards, who have a high-powered offense, even if they are the worst defensive team in the league. But to just kind of be like, it's one thing if they're making shots. Any NBA team can make shots on any given night. But the Grizzlies tonight were getting open looks, and they were making those open looks, and that's not good. And there's obviously something that needs to be addressed. We were not rotating early. I think that we were almost kind of countering the penetration aspect. Where I've mentioned on the stream before, one of the areas that we've struggled in previous games is allowing high levels of penetration all the way to the basket, having Ayton contest, and then that has been a serious problem with us due to the early rotations on defense, which are supposed to help out on the perimeter shots. And if you rotate slower, that helps with the penetration, that helps allow you to help off into the driving lanes. But it opens up the shooters. And tonight, we actually saw more of that. I think this was the first game where I can clearly say that we were almost rotating late at times, especially our wing defenders. And that just was not great. Other than that, I think I can go ahead and go through each individual player and just kind of give my rundown on their performance as well as takeaways. I won't touch on Ayton or D-Book too much more, just because I've talked about him so heavily. Ayton, great ball movement, 3 assists. Like I said, had at least another 3 or 4 hockey assists tonight. I love to see the ball movement out of the double team in the low post. I love to see his aggressiveness from the mid-range rather than just settling for a bunch of shots. And even this is going to be something that is a bit different. But I enjoy watching Ayton take those top of the key threes. He missed both of them tonight, but I do love him going ahead and shooting those. I think as soon as he starts making even a decent percentage of them, that could really, really help just with our space, as well as helping the pick and roll. And so I want to continue to see him taking those 3-point shots, even though they did not fall tonight. Great offense, love the aggressiveness, good dunks, fucking a lot of fun to watch, very good defense, and we entirely relied on him in the rebounding. For Chris Paul tonight, 16, 3, and 7 of 13 shooting. Played some solid defense at times, but is not somebody that you can heavily rely on for 48 minutes to guard the best player. He was not on Jaw as much as I would like to see, but I also understand that you were not putting 36-year-old Chris Paul on John Morant for 31 minutes in a game. It's just not happening anymore, or at least during the regular season. However, I do love what I continue to see out of Chris Paul in terms of just the ball movement and the off-ball movement, especially. There were several cuts as well as flare screens that I saw whenever Chris Paul was attacking the basket, which led to some wide open looks, even though we weren't knocking them down super consistently early on. But I do love to see his aggressiveness in the second half in terms of getting his own buckets, and he was one of the big reasons that we were even in this game. So I definitely think that Chris Paul was probably our second best player tonight, and I liked what I saw out of Chris Paul. Mikal Bridges, 17, 8, and 2, 6 of 9 shooting, 2 of 5 from 3. I think Mikal had a really, really solid game. As I mentioned in the first half, I absolutely love to see him attacking, going through contact. In the same vein where I believe that for Cam to take his next step in his game. He's going to need to continue to attack the basket. In the last few games, we have seen Mikal do that. He has always been a fantastic cutter, as well as obviously a spot-up threat. But I love to see him putting the ball on the floor while attacking the basket. Ran the pick and roll for him several times, which we did not see against the Wizards. He found his shot in the second half, his outside shot in the second half. Had a few good steals, jump in the passing lane. And I think that he has the skills to be a legitimately good rebounder. I mean, he's lengthy and athletic, and we saw him getting involved on the glass tonight at instances. However, he has a tendency to rely on his length and athleticism rather than putting a body on somebody. So I obviously would like to see him putting a body on somebody. But overall, he played a really, really solid game. And you cannot in any way put this game on Mikal. Next was Cam Johnson, 10, 4, and 3 on 4 of 9 shooting. Again, Cam was incredibly quiet in the first half, but those 2 threes that he hit at the beginning of the fourth quarter was what allowed this to be a game. And I think that he continues to bring an extra element to our offense, especially with the off-ball movement. However, tonight we did not see that campaign to Cam Johnson connection, which really hurt, especially in the third quarter when we were, before we got the offense rolling and put the starters back out there. There was about a 4 or 5 minute stretch where we really weren't getting any baskets, and it really would have been nice to see Cam Payne and Cam Johnson break that stretch. However, that did not come. I would like to see Cam be as aggressive attacking the basket and sharing the basketball as he was in the first half, but he did not maintain that throughout the game. So I give this a B- performance, maybe C+ in his first career start. However, he was clearly better than Jay Crowder, so I have no qualms with the decision. I've been a Jay Crowder defender on this stream. I completely think that he brings several elements as well as intangibles or just specific skills that the rest of the starters do not have. However, he's very clearly going through a cold stretch offensively, 2 of 7, 1 of 5 from 3 tonight. And so I'm all for Cam getting those minutes. Jay really struggled tonight, 5, 2, and 5. I actually really enjoy seeing him getting involved with the ball movement. I've said before that he's never really been somebody his entire career that the ball sticks with. However, sometimes he does take too many three-point shots. And after starting off the game 1 for 3, I would not have mind not seeing him take those last 2 threes that he took. He really didn't do the things that we needed him to do, the backside rebounding, the defending, as well as the off-ball movement. However, I actually do enjoy seeing him as a tertiary playmaker. Neither Mikal or Cam are great passers or even good passers. I think Mikal shows flashes of that every once in a while. However, I am starting to believe that Jay is that guy in terms of tertiary kick out drive, the closeout's coming, attack the closeout, and then pass it off of attacking that closeout. We saw that several times tonight. However, outside of that, he was bad. He was just a bad game from Jay Crowder, which definitely did not help us out. Javon Carter tonight was actually pretty solid offensively. He hit a few shots for us, drew that foul at the end of the shot clock. I think that this is the type of team that Javon needs heavy minutes against, with a backcourt lineup of Ja, Grayson Allen, and Dylan Brooks all getting heavy minutes. Those are perfect matchups for Javon. However, tonight he really wasn't able to impact the game defensively as much as we have seen him have the capacity to do. But he was fine tonight. He did what was needed of him offensively, and he was not getting burned defensively. But he definitely did not have a standout defensive performance, which could have been the difference in this game. Campaign, 5-2-4 on 2 of 4 shooting. This was a very disappointing game from Campaign. We desperately needed him back, and he came back slow, and that's understandable. I mean, he's coming off of injury. Excuse me. But he really was not attacking the basket tonight. At one point in the game, he got into the lane and hit a floater, but it really felt like that was one of the 2, maybe 3 times that he even really attacked the basket today. And our second unit relies heavily on his penetration. I mean, that's the primary crux of the Campaign to Cam Johnson chemistry, their connection, their ability for them to spark runs is heavily predicated on Campaign's ability to get to the basket. And tonight we just did not see nearly enough out of that, especially with D-Book struggling the way he was. We really needed Campaign to create some offense. And he did a good job of moving the ball on the perimeter. I mean, he had 4 assists, but it was not the game that we needed out of Campaign. And it's hard to ask Campaign to show up big every night and be the difference in every game, especially coming off of offense. But he was not that tonight, and we've seen him be that. And it would have been nice to have that kind of offensive output from Campaign, as well as defense. I felt like he looked slow on defense at points. He got beat off the dribble a few times by Dylan Brooks, which helped generate kick-out looks for the Grizzlies. So it just was a underwhelming game from Campaign in a game in which we needed somebody else to step up offensively with D-Book shitting the bed. And Cam was not that guy tonight. And that's okay. I mean, you can't expect your guard getting 17, 18 minutes a night to be that guy consistently. But, again, it would have been nice to see that. Frank Kaminsky, 8-5, 3 of 7, 2 of 3 from 3. Kaminsky looked fine tonight. He looked really bad down the stretch. And I really wish we had kept Ayton in during that stretch. However, I do understand that Ayton was probably fucking gassed. I mean, he was giving it his all tonight, especially. But Kaminsky hit those 2 threes early on in the first quarter, which allowed us to get that 10-point lead that we had, and that was absolutely huge. However, after that moment, he cooled off. There were a few instances where Kaminsky looked good on defense. He had a few good contests, and I actually do believe that he has improved in that category, just specifically contesting people driving to the basket. However, he's not a good defender. Do not get me wrong. He's not a good defender, and he is not somebody you can rely on heavy minutes to get heavy center minutes. And in fact, I kind of like him best at power forward. Put Saric in and let Saric run the traditional center role, and Kaminsky run more of that power forward role on offense. I think that's really where he excels. I mean, we saw it last year next to Aaron Baines in brief moments. And tonight was not a situation with Sarge being out in which we were able to fully utilize Kaminsky. I don't think it was a bad game from him, but I definitely think outside of those back-to-back threes, he was also, as well as Javon, as well as Campaign, he was underwhelming tonight in a game where we desperately needed somebody to not be. Langston Galloway, 5 points in 9 minutes, 2 of 2. I will never fucking understand why this man does not get more minutes whenever our offense goes cold. There are times where it looks like our offense struggles to get looks. Not make shots, but just get looks. And Langston, with his insane quick release, is somebody who can always get a look at the basket. Whenever we're having just those down offensive periods, I really would like to see Langston be inserted and get 2 to 3 extra minutes per game. I fully believe at this point that he should not be getting 9 minutes a game for us. But should rather be in that 12 to 15 range. I like to see him attacking the basket. But obviously, in 9 minutes, he just couldn't really impact the game at a high level. So it's hard to put anything on him, and I would love to see him get more minutes next to CP3. I think that in the minutes we've seen, in the very brief minutes that we've seen Langston Galloway next to CP3, we've gotten some great looks on offense, and Galloway has a significant amount of gravity. He's not somebody that you help off of. He is not somebody that you rotate off of, which just opens up our offense, especially when there's a high level of ball movement. But we did not see that tonight. We didn't get to see that enough. And obviously, it was a close game, and I think that Langston could have been the difference in the game in the way that Cam, Javon, and Kaminsky were not. Obviously missed Sarge tonight. He also probably would have been the difference in this game. But, I mean, they were missing Valanciunas as well as Jaren Jackson. So you can't really be like, oh, if we had Sarge, we probably win this, because they could easily turn around and say the same for their starting center and starting power forward. So it was nice to see Ayton kind of taking advantage of those mismatches, as well as drawing the double, which obviously helped out our offense significantly. But at the end of the day, our wings did not fully take advantage of those mismatches, and that is not always great to see. There are definitely times throughout the game where it's like, fuck, dude, they've switched a guard onto Ayton. Our only focus for the rest of the offensive possession should be getting Ayton the ball down low with a guard on him. And we saw at least 3 or 4 instances tonight where Jaw got switched onto him or Brooks got switched onto him, and we were unable to get him the ball. So whenever Valanciunas and Jaren Jackson are out, to fully penalize these teams, we are going to need to force the ball to Ayton in those situations. And tonight we didn't do that to the degree in which we needed to win this game. I am going to review some of the comments on the Our Suns postgame thread, and then go ahead and get off after yet again another extremely disappointing loss from the Suns. Again, we're in a bit of a rut, and we really, really need to turn this around. Booker on a long leash, so no one should be going for his head. He's earned the patience of all Suns fans. That being said, this game was on him. I mean, that's fucking facts. I think that I was seeing comments in the game thread, and luckily they were being downvoted about like trade Booker and shit like that. And if you are a Suns fan and you are saying that, that tells me nothing more than you are a brand new Suns fan. Because no intelligent Suns fan, no Suns fan with any basketball knowledge, has been able to watch Devin Booker these last 4-5 years, and after a bad game like tonight, be like, trade Booker. I hate that shit. Booker's still clearly the best player on our team. But he had a bad game tonight, and this game was on him more so than it was on anybody else. And that is, it's frustrating, especially against a team like the Grizzlies, who we should beat. But it's not the end of the day. He will bounce back. I have no doubt in my mind that he will bounce back. I mean, he literally just had a 33 or 35 point game against the Wizards. He was the only one that showed up in that game. So I'm not even remotely worried about Devin Booker. I agree 100%, but I don't think I'm wrong to be at the point where I'm starting to get nervous about it just a little bit. We're 12 games in, and Book hasn't looked right. This is the first season with true expectations on him, and he sucks. Seeing this, we know what he has in him. I'm not going to blame Kindle or anything like that, but whatever it is, we're reaching the point where D-Book needs to solve whatever the issue is sooner rather than later. And I mean, that's understandable. He very clearly has had a problem through these first 12 games. He's not playing to the standard that we expect him to play. But it's 12 games. I mean, I just it's hard for me to even worry. I understand if this continues for another 8 games, then absolutely. I will be the first person to vocally worry about D-Book on this stream. But it's not like he's played horribly. I mean, he's still absolutely been inarguably one of the two best players on our team. And it might not feel like that because he's been worse than what we expect him to be. But, I mean, he's still a fucking bucket. Like, come on now. And the Suns are still playing well, despite these last 4 games. So I think that he does need to turn it around. I do expect more out of D-Book. But we also need to just remember that. I mean, like, this is fucking D-Book. Like, I'm not worried. We've seen him go on cold stretches before. We've absolutely seen that. I've seen that no less than 3 or 4 times in his career. This is just another one of those. He's not suddenly a worse player, but obviously he's playing bad, and he does need to turn it around. Or he's not playing bad. He's playing poorly to his standards, and tonight he was bad. Yep, this one is on Book. Hard to disagree. His play this year has been so disappointing. He has some stuff to figure out because his offense has not been where it has and needs to be. He's too good to keep playing like this, and that's understandable. I mean, if he continues to play like this, then like I said, maybe I will start worrying. But again, it's a 12-game stretch. He's had a few good games in that 12-game stretch. So overall, I am not worried, nor do I believe in the Kardashian/Jenner jinx or curse or whatever you want to call it. I think that those are 2 incredibly uncorrelated things. So I'm not worried at all about D-Book, and he will turn it around. I feel quite confident in saying so. God, I'm so angry. We can never beat this team. On top of that, Aiden played well. Aiden played the way we have been wanting him to play. We struggled to get him the ball a lot of times. And Devin fucking Booker has been awful this season. He cost us this game. He has not been awful this season. I mean, in no terms has he been awful this season. He's been worse than he normally is. But he absolutely is still easily, even when playing poorly towards his standards, has not been awful. I mean, I think that is a one-game conclusion that we were seeing there for the later half of that. I do understand the frustration. It is tough to blow a game like this. I mean, yeah, D-Book's averaging 23, 3, and 4 on 60% true shooting. If that's awful, 23, 3, and 4 on 60% shooting is awful. That's why I saw some dude in the game thread talking about he hasn't been a top 75 player. 23, 3, and 4 on 60% true shooting has been awful, not top 75. Like, what are y'all talking about, man? I'd significantly disagree with that. But, again, 23, 3, and 4 is underwhelming from Devin Booker's standards. So I understand why people are frustrated with Devin Booker. But we also need to pump the brakes a little bit. In the same way that we needed to pump the brakes after the bad Ayton versus Wizards game. This was just a bad game. It does not mean he's played awful this season, or that he's not a top 75 player, or that we won't be good unless he turns it around. He's still playing well. But again, obviously this game was entirely on him. This was the worst game of Devin Booker's career. I'm starting to suspect that Kendall Jenner is a serious problem here. I don't agree with that. I think that it's one of the worst games of his career. Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. It definitely is in the top 5 worst game over the last 3 years. But, I mean, again, for the 20th time on this stream, we have seen this out of Devin Booker before. This is not a first-time thing for Devin Booker. This is not a first-time thing for any star in the entire NBA. Guys go cold. And we would like to see Devin Booker be more passive and stop being aggressive and shot hunting whenever he is in a cold stretch like he was today. But, I mean, it was a bad game. But I definitely have seen something similar out of Devin Booker in similar games. So it's one of those things. Also, this man just say Jenner is not hot. She's not even that hot. Come at me. Man, I get it. I'm going to give y'all a pass. I understand. We're all worked up. We just lost a game against a team that we shouldn't have lost, in which we were up, and Devin Booker had a horrible game. But come on, y'all. She's fine. You can't tell me this woman is not fine. Ayton dominating, Booker laying an egg as he has been all season, except for when we're getting blown out. Again, I don't agree with these takes about Devin Booker. I mean, he's very clearly not played up to his standard. And tonight, he was the worst player on the floor for us, and it was one of his worst games of his career. But he's not been awful all season long. I disagree with these takes. I mean, in fact, he's been huge for us offensively in stretches. I mean, we've absolutely had games like the Pacers game where we go cold in stretches offensively, and we need D-Book to go get us buckets, and he go gets us buckets. And that's what he tried to do tonight. It was very clear that down the stretch, he's like, all right, well, fuck, I have to just go get us an offensive bucket, or go get us a bucket, and he was unable to do so. And I think that was a detriment, that mentality was a detriment to the team down the stretch, as well in the first quarter. But, I mean, it happens. Like, this is the NBA. I mean, you could say the exact same thing about LeBron has even had games this year where he's gone cold during a stretch and then continues to shoot it. So, I don't want to harp on D-Book too much. Like I said, obviously, his worst game of the season, he was the worst player on the team tonight. But, again, I do think we need to... I've seen enough out of D-Book over these last 4 years to give this man extreme leeway. And I will continue to give him extreme leeway even after kind of shitting the bed like he did tonight. Bit yuck. I don't think that should have been so close all game. Why does Galloway get such limited minutes? Big facts. He's our most efficient scorer and is lucky to crack double-digit minutes on any night. Saric's significance cannot be understated. I completely agree. I think that Langston Galloway not getting minutes, especially during those offensive cold stretches, is a crime, and I do not understand why he does not get at least some minutes every game next to Chris Paul. I love those lineups. Sucks that we have forgotten how to make free throws, long way off breaking the NBA record last year. Yeah, we are absolutely in a free throw slump. And I mean, every team goes through free throw slumps, except for us last year. And we're experiencing one right now. And when our offense is struggling, it just makes it so much worse. Hopefully that will turn around, though. Surprised Dylan fucking Brooks didn't go off today, as he always does against us. Fuck Dylan Brooks. And playoff teams win ugly, and we did not do that today. Now, yeah, we did not do that today. In fact, the Grizzlies did. I was very impressed with the Grizzlies bench, especially against us. And they're the reason that they were 4-4 without John Morant or Jaren Jackson Jr., and they really showed up against us tonight. So, this is definitely a game that we should have won. However, I mean, we're coming off of not playing for a full week and coming off of a bad loss. So, you have to factor in our performance today, as well as legitimately analyze how we played in the takeaways. But also, it's one game. It's a 72-game series, or season, rather. So, I am worried about the Suns in general due to these last 4 games. But, you know, it could be worse for sure. This team loves to lose to teams missing multiple starters. That's a comment that hurts to read and is true. Oh, fuck, that was winnable. Missed free throws and the turnovers killed us. Yeah, I really hated the turnovers in the second half. We kind of got sloppy with the ball at times, especially when only one of D-Book or CP3 were on the floor. And that was an element where I really wish Campaign had not taken over, but been more aggressive, had the ball in his hands more often than he did, penetrating and getting into the second layer of the defense. And we didn't see that tonight, which really did hurt us at times. Props to DA. That's the kind of game we all wanted to see. It was great from Aiden. It was a fucking great game. I absolutely loved what I saw from him on pretty much every aspect of his game tonight. Booker, time to sell your streaming setup. Understandable. Devin Booker taking shots when they haven't been falling instead of passing to Ayton, who got Morant on the block a couple times in the fourth, doesn't sit right with me, and I hope someone talks to him about that. I mentioned that on the stream just a few minutes ago, but I definitely think that there were too many instances of Ayton having a guard sealed off on the low post or in the low post, and we didn't focus on getting him the ball. And if Ayton gets a goddamn guard switched onto him in the post, that should be the only option. And if they double off of that, then that'll create better looks for our offense. But there's no reason that if we have more than 12 seconds left in the shot clock and Ayton has a guard sealed in the post, that he should not touch that ball. I don't care if you have to force it to him, fucking force it to him. So I agree. Booker, 521, missed an open Ayton many times. Easy to complain about the team, but this loss was really on him today. I would agree. I'm just happy to watch Suns basketball again. Hopefully watching Suns basketball doesn't take that happiness away. It definitely was a tough loss. But at the end of the day, I do love getting to sit down and watch the Suns play. I love Ayton's performance tonight. And there were some positive takeaways from this game, at least versus the Wizards game. However, obviously losing to the Grizzlies without Jaren Jackson and Valanciunas hurts. And it's not a team that we should lose to. And we have now lost 3 out of the last 4 games to teams that we should have beat, which is not good. I am not worried about D-Book. I'm not worried about Ayton. But I am a little bit beginning to worry about the Suns. I think that there are very clear avenues to turn this around, and I think Monty is well aware of that, as well as Chris Paul, who's, well known for being one of the best basketball IQs to ever play the game. So I'm not too worried, and it does give me a little bit more peace of mind to know that I think the Thunder started 4-6 last year. It's early. It's early on in the season. This team's still finding itself. Luckily, we played well enough early on in the season to allow us to have a bad stretch of games like this and still be towards the top of the Western Conference. But obviously, something's got to change. Something needs to change. We do need D-Book to turn it around. As well as at least 2 of Jay, McHale, and Cam to show up every game, and Ayton to continue to play as well as he did tonight. With that being said, this game was obviously disappointing, but it was less disappointing than the Pistons and the Wizards game, so that's good at least, I guess. I don't know. This was a tough one. Thank you to everybody that made it all the way through the stream. I appreciate you checking out the stream. And I cannot wait to talk to y'all after the next game. See y'all then.